So I'm going to get some definitions out the way. One, what do I mean by virtuous vixen? Now, out of this journey, I've developed a business, I have seminars, I have all kinds of things. But I actually never really made it personal. So this is about making it personal. But let me tell you what I mean. Virtuous vixen. Now one, there's the vixen. We've heard this term. People have so many different, associations with it. I'm going to give you my official definition. All right, the vixen. She's a sensuous, liberated woman who's well aware of her sexuality, who knows how to use her sensuality to get what she wants. But then virtuous. This is of moral excellence, not indulging in activity that is in opposition to one's morals, values, and or beliefs. So when you combine those two, the virtuous vixen, I say the virtuous vixen is a sensuous woman who understands that virtuous does not equal prudish or frigid. She is clear that to be a vixen does not mean to be loose, lewd, or malicious. She owns her sensuality and uses it for good. She's not ashamed of being a woman. She's not uncomfortable with being sensual or sexual. She is the wife that will keep the marriage bed hot and the girlfriend that men would love to marry. She is the ultimate seductress who knows what she wants and how to get it with honor, integrity, and a lot of fun. So that's what I mean when I say I'm the virtuous vixen. And it's a journey. I would say that I have conquered or I embodied several aspects of that. But the last piece of it, this being the ultimate seductress, that's something I'm honestly working on. And you all will meet and hear about many of my coaches who are helping me on this journey. And I also share with you how I came to be this way. And it's actually been a lot of fun. So virtuous vixen, hope we're all clear of that. There's a couple other things you'll hear me talk about over the next few weeks, months, years, however long this journey lasts. And one of them is going to be the idea of masculine versus feminine. And I also like to use this term fire and water because sometimes we get so caught up in this idea of masculine and feminine that there's this extreme that women are only feminine and men are only masculine. So we're going to talk about the fact that as human beings, we are made up of a lot of different aspects. And we have some feminine traits and some masculine traits. You may have heard it like yin and yang. I'm going to use the terminology fire and water. Okay? So fire, it's hot. It's like the sun. It's all about doing, giving, accomplishing, demanding, protecting, using force, being very direct, implementing, actually making things happen, being really feisty or aggressive, like that in action, right? Passion, touching things and holding things, right? That's like the fiery aspects of our personalities, and we all have them, right? Then we're going to call the water. It could be also called the feminine, right? With yin, but the water. It's more like the moon. It's bright, definitely not as hot as the sun, but illuminating nonetheless. It's always changing, right? The moon, it waxes, it wanes, it goes through its cycles, right? It's about being versus about doing, being. It's about receiving. Receiving, not the giving, the receiving. You're being open. Acknowledgement. There's the accomplishment we talk about with the fire, but the water is the acknowledgement, being gracious, being supportive, right? Versus the demanding, it's being supportive. There's the nurturing, right? There's the protection, and then there's the nurturing. So there's the nurturing. There's the power versus force, right? And there's a distinction, right? Force, making something happen, forcing an outcome. Power is being able to just have something happen without having to use force. So there's a huge distinction there. So there's force and there's power. And the water is all about the power. It's more subtle. Not so direct. It's very subtle. It's about creating. There's the implementation we talked about before, but then there's the creation. That's the water. It's very calm. It can be peaceful, It's serene. Now, we all know that water is not always that way. You know, it can be whipped up and agitated. But we're talking about being the serenity, the peace, versus the feisty, aggressive, gotta get out there and do it. The water is calm, right? There's tenderness. So there's passion, but then there's tenderness. The water is all about being tender, right? There's touching things, and then there's caressing, right? I can touch and I can caress, right? And then there's holding something, and I can hold it, and I can also embrace it, right? Variations on the same thing, but different ways, right? So there's those differences. So if I talk about something being masculine or feminine, or something being fiery or being watery, those are some of the things and the distinctions between those two. Okay, so got that done. The next is going to be the ways of being. So we all have fire and water inside of us, but as men and women, they tend to be expressed differently. And so I use 4 archetypes. I have 4 for men, I have 4 for women. So the 4 for women, these are the easy ones for me: the flirt, the vixen, the diva, and the goddess. All right. For men, the esquire, the scholar, the artist, and the warrior. So I'll explain how the two correlate. There's the esquire and the flirt. Now, they're all about, presentation, personal care, the finesse, right? It's learning how to present yourself sometimes in a way that is appealing, right? That, when we talk about some of that stuff in some of my seminars, I'll talk more about that at another time. But the flirt and the esquire, some of it's kind of, I say it's kind of basic, but really it's just like the beginning of this journey to becoming what I say an adult, right? Really being mature in knowing your stuff. So the flirt, we call the fabulous flirt, is all about being, fabulous. We say amazing, astounding, just unbelievable, phenomenal. All that is in the word of being, fabulous. And the flirt, someone who chats up and talks amorously without serious intention. So the fabulous flirt is about being aware, for women especially, about your power and your mystique. You know that it's there. And you know that being a girl has its benefits, and you know how to play it up when you want to. But there's a bit of being a chameleon about it. Able to move in and out of situations with charm and grace. You're going to put people in situations at ease with your smile and your laugh and your beautiful spirit. So there's a wonderful benefit to being in the flirt dimension for both men and women. And that's the charming person. And we all know how being charming is great. So the flirt, also known as the water, very much watery, right? In the world of it, it's being tender, it's being creative, it's the being, so both the esquire and the flirt are more of the water characteristics. They express differently between men and women, but in that same realm. All right, let's move on to the diva and the warrior, right? I mean, the word warrior, I think it's kind of self-explanatory, right? I mean, when you think warrior, you think strong, protecting, getting things done, achieving, very fiery, right? And it's the same thing for being a diva. We have a definition, find it here, the dynamic diva, right? The dynamic diva, to be dynamic is to be in action, vibrant, full of life, energetic, vigorous. And a diva, officially, despite what you may have heard or what you may think, right, is a woman of rare and outstanding talent. So for us, the dynamic diva has style, she has flair, she has her stuff together, right? She's a woman who's strong and graceful and knows that being fulfilled starts with taking care of herself. She knows who she is, never forgets where she came from and what she came through, and she's not going to stop until she gets there. The warrior, very simple. Also, these are fiery. Okay, these are about getting things done. When you're going to work, you get a new project, you're implementing something that you've created, you are operating in the world of being a diva or being a warrior, and it is awesome. But it's not always appropriate. Right? We got 2 more. And then that'll be it for today. And then the next time I come back, we'll get into some more stuff. But let's talk about the scholar/goddess. So it's all about seeking wisdom, seeking knowledge. It's about being wise, having this wisdom. So the graceful goddess, as we call her, being grace, having grace is about beauty, charm, kindness, dignity, elegance, poise. And the goddess is a woman of superior charms or excellence, great beauty, and grace. So the graceful goddess is a woman who loves herself, her body, and her spirit. She moves with grace, she struts with sizzles, and she strives with sensuality. The goddess knows how to love herself as well as those around her. Distinct from the diva who can be a little self-centered. And sometimes we all need to be about self. But that goddess understands that balance. She has an inner peace. She radiates confidence, femininity, and grace. The goddess has it all. It's a place to get to. But sometimes we get there in moments, right? And she gets living a balanced life. She goes past just looking good to actually being well, being balanced. And the same is being said for the scholar. He's the wise man. He's the sage. He's the person, when you're operating from a space of wisdom and intellect and not being run, by your emotions. Scholar, goddess, all right? And then the final piece, to get back to the idea of the vixen or the artist. And it's really interesting. This is about, and the goddess is all about, and it's water. The goddess and the scholar, very much water. But then we're going to get into the vixen and the artist, and they are fiery. And it's interesting, it's about self-expression, it's about being sensual, definitely about being sexual. So there's an aspect of being an artist, right, of creativity. That's true. But there's a productiveness of this, right? It's about passion. We talked about that vixen. And that artist with men, it is... Women love so much artistic men because there's a full self-expression that they have. And for the women, when you're operating in that vixen, there's just a sense of ease about yourself, about your body. There's a power there. So they're both very fiery. So in these 4 dimensions of being, there's some that are water, there's some that are fire, but they make up us all. And the idea is to really understand how to move and ebb and flow and transition between them all, depending on what's appropriate. So those are my definitions for today. Okay? And I promise that I'm going to share more about myself in the upcoming seminars, upcoming videos. And I'm going to document my journey from being who I was, which FYI was a shy, conservative church girl. Anyone who knew me way back when. Very sheltered, always been very sweet, but a little judgmental, because I was very strong in my faith and hadn't matured yet in my spiritual walk. To who I am today, which is someone who, I get these dimensions of being, and I have my moments when I'm being all of them, but I am working on mastery. And I invite you to take a look for yourself about what would it be like if you could master the 4 dimensions of being. Flirt, the vixen, the diva, the goddess, or the scholar, the esquire, the artist, and the warrior. What could life provide? So thank you for joining me today. And stay tuned for further updates from the Virtuous Vixen as I share about my journey. I'm going to do a couple more today, but we're going to break them up. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining me.